There's no doubt that she drove the final nail into this movie's coffin. She probably drove the final 2 or 3 nails into the coffin.
Yeah, right there. Zoom in right there. That's it. 163,000 rating, of which it got 1.6, not out of 5.
He's no Prince Charming, and she made sure the world knew it. When Disney cast Rachel Zegler as the new Snow White, fans thought it was a dream come true. Fresh off her rise to stardom, she was bold, confident, and fit right into Disney's push to shake things up with more diverse faces in their reboots. But what looked like a fairy tale quickly flipped into one of Disney's biggest PR disasters. It all blew up when Zegler opened her mouth during early promo interviews and didn't hold back. Instead of sticking to the usual sweet and safe press lines, she went off script, dropping bombs about her modern take on the classic tale. In one now viral interview, Zegler didn't just shade the 1937 original, she practically roasted it. She called the prince a guy who literally stalks her and questioned why Snow White even needed to be rescued in the first place. Her exact words? "She's not gonna be saved by the prince," Zegler declared. "She's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be." Sure, on paper it sounded like a bold new take, but die-hard Disney fans weren't having it. To them, it felt like she threw the OG magic in the trash, the nostalgic sparkle of Disney's very first princess, gone in a flash. David Hand, son of the original supervising director of Snow White, didn't hold back either. He claimed Zegler showed no respect for what Walt Disney and his dad did all those years ago. And just like that, social media went wild. Memes exploded across timelines, putting Zegler's words side by side with classic Snow White clips, dripping in sarcasm and hashtags like "Not My Snow." Snow White started trending, but not in a good way. Fan accounts and YouTube commentators were dragging Rachel Zegler hard, calling her arrogant and completely disconnected from the audience she was supposed to charm. But the outrage wasn't just about what she said, it was how she said it. Her tone, cold, her vibe, like she was too good for the role. Instead of coming off like a proud young actress stepping into an iconic Disney role, she gave the energy of someone embarrassed by the very story she was paid to bring back to life. Fans were shocked. It felt like she wasn't reimagining Snow White, she was tearing it down. Disney, silent. They tried to play it cool. No public statements, barely any promo, and a whole lot of hoping the internet would just move on. But that didn't happen, because Zegler kept talking. In another jaw-dropping interview, she casually admitted she'd only watched the original Snow White once, and she didn't even like it. She laughed and said the story didn't make sense to her. Then came the kicker. Zegler joked about getting paid for a role she didn't enjoy. That right there lit another fire under the backlash. Fans were furious, saying she was disrespecting the opportunity and biting the hand that fed her. And when Prince Charming came up again, she rolled her eyes and scoffed like the idea of romance was some kind of joke. She doubled down, calling the love story outdated. That hit a nerve. The same film that launched Disney's empire and touched generations, suddenly labeled irrelevant? People weren't just mad, they were offended. What started as a celebration for a fresh new chapter in Disney's legacy turned into a storm of controversy. Fans who grew up loving Snow White felt slapped in the face, and now critics were asking, is this movie already cursed? The fairy tale that once glowed with hope was falling apart, word by word, from the very actress meant to bring it back to life. By the time Snow White dragged itself into theaters, the magic was already gone. Disney, the PR machine known for flipping disasters into gold, was in full damage control. They scrambled to rewrite the story. Zegler, once the face of the reboot, was quietly pushed to the side. Instead, the focus turned to pretty visuals, glittery costumes, and dreamy sets. Anything to steer attention away from the chaos. The prince? Practically erased from the trailers, and Zegler vanished from the press circuit like a ghost. The studio clearly hoped that a big, splashy opening weekend would drown out the noise. But nope, The box office told the real story. The film's debut numbers were meh, not a total flop, but definitely not a win. Then came the second weekend, and boom, a brutal 66% drop in ticket sales slammed the project like a wrecking ball. The audience had spoken loud and clear. They weren't buying it. Suddenly, what was supposed to be a bold reimagining of a Disney classic was looking like one of the studio's worst live-action flops ever. And just when things couldn't get worse, they did. Zegler popped back up with a video that set the internet on fire for all the wrong reasons. In the now infamous clip, she's seen sitting alone in a totally empty movie theater, munching popcorn and grinning at the camera. Maybe it was supposed to be cheeky or ironic, but it came off completely out of touch. The internet exploded. Memes flew, critics roasted it, fans cringed. What should have been a moment of humility just made things worse. To many, it looked like she didn't care, or worse, didn't even understand why people were upset. Even folks who had her back in the beginning started backing away. And to top it all off, the whispers started. Rumors swirling that even her own castmates weren't riding for her anymore. While the world was locked in on Rachel Zegler's viral interviews and Snow White's crashing box office, a behind-the-scenes drama was heating up, one that involved her co-star, Andrew Burnap. The tension between them was no secret to those paying attention, and soon it would spill into the spotlight, adding even more mess to the already rocky ride. Even before the cameras stopped rolling, whispers of trouble had started. Burnap, who played a brand new character named Jonathan, created just for this remake, was meant to bring some fresh energy and depth. But from the jump, something felt off. Real office. It wasn't just a lack of chemistry between him and Zegler. It was like he didn't exist in her world at all. He was totally missing from early promo rounds. No joint interviews, no shared red carpets, no cute behind-the-scenes selfies, not even a casual tag on social media. Fans noticed, and fast. Then the whispers turned darker. Insiders claimed Zegler, whether out of ego, nerves, or just pure control, had made comments about slashing Burnap's screen time. Some even said she joked, but not really, that the film should cut anything that didn't revolve around her version of Snow White. One source spilled that Zegler allegedly saw Burnap's role as expendable. And in a now notorious interview with Extra TV, Zegler didn't hold back. She called Burnap's character a weird stalker and reminded everyone, again, that the movie wasn't about romance. Her words? "It's really not about the love story at all, which is really wonderful." Was she just defending her take on the role, or was she trying to push him out of the spotlight altogether? Either way, the tension wasn't just a rumor. It was real, and fans could feel it. Burnap had poured his heart into the role. This was supposed to be his big break. But instead of a career-defining moment, he was watching his performance get chopped down and pushed to the side. The more the promo campaign unraveled, the more frustrated he became. What started as excitement turned into disappointment, and fast. He had signed on with real hype, ready to work alongside a headline-grabbing cast. But as the release got closer, the warning signs were impossible to ignore. His screen time? Slashed. His character? Fading into the background. Marketing? He was practically invisible. As if that wasn't bad enough, once the box office numbers dipped, especially that brutal second-week crash, Burnap's frustration exploded into full-on resentment. Insiders say he was livid. After everything he gave the film, he was watching it crash and burn, and he knew exactly who he blamed. One source put it bluntly. Rachel was so locked in on Snow White, she completely ignored the rest of the cast. Burnap reportedly felt betrayed, like he'd been sacrificed for someone else's ego. He put in so much work, just to see it all wiped out in the edit, said a source close to him. And this wasn't just some creative disagreement. This cut deep. Burnap wasn't alone either. Rumblings spread that other cast members felt uneasy with how things were run. Zegler's strong personality and ambitions had taken over, and not everyone was on board. But Burnap, he had the most to lose. His character wasn't supposed to be minor. He'd been promised something more. Instead, he ended up watching his role disappear piece by piece. Then came the final blow. Disney quietly scrapped plans for a sequel. The whole franchise had taken a hit, but it hit Burnap the hardest. And the worst part? Rumors were flying that if there ever was a second film, Jonathan might be erased altogether. The biggest clue that Burnap's work was being pushed aside? He started fading out before the press noticed. By the time the media caught wind of his frustration, he had already pulled back from the project. While he never called out Zegler by name, the tension was loud without a single word. He disappeared from promo content, skipped events, and dropped cryptic social media posts about moving on and learning lessons. Fans connected the dots and fast. But just as that fire was still burning, Zegler lit another match, this time with politics. She took to her platform to speak out strongly in support of Palestine, throwing herself right into one of the most explosive global conversations of the moment. And this wasn't a one-off. Zegler had always been a loud voice for activism and social justice. But her statements on the Israel-Palestine conflict hit different, especially considering her co-star Gal Gadot's background. Gadot, famous for her role as Wonder Woman, had served in the Israeli military and had been vocal in her support for Israel. So when Zegler went public with her stance, it wasn't just controversial, it was personal. Suddenly, fans weren't just watching a movie meltdown. They were watching two stars clash over politics, right in the middle of a messy press tour. And the tension between them, you could feel it through the screen. Their joint interviews were ice cold. No jokes, no laughter, just awkward silences and stiff smiles. Zegler looked detached, barely making eye contact. Gadot? She seemed on edge, often glancing away or keeping her body turned. Their back and forths were short and sharp, with none of the friendly spark people expect between co-leads. A source spilled that during filming she was fine with Rachel, but they are not friends. And watching them now, that was crystal clear. One insider didn't mince words. They have nothing in common. They did a job together, and that's it. Behind the scenes, things were way more tense than the cameras let on. Sources said the two actresses were actively avoiding each other whenever possible. And it wasn't just politics, it was deeper than that. It was about identity, values, and how both women carried themselves on and off screen. Then things got even messier. Reports surfaced that Gadot had received threats in response to Zegler's outspoken support for Palestine. The backlash surrounding Zegler's comments was already intense, but now it was spilling over and dragging her co-star into the crossfire. That moment changed everything. The rift wasn't just professional anymore, it was personal. Fans and insiders alike began asking, how long could these two continue promoting the same film before things blew up completely? Disney tried hard to do cleanup. They pushed out fluff stories, polished interviews, and kept the focus on the film's visuals. But it didn't work. The media wasn't buying it. Everyone was locked in on Zegler versus Gadot, their opposing views, and the very real divide between them. And Zegler, she wasn't done stirring things up. Her political fire didn't stop at global issues. She took aim right at home, too. In a series of bold, unapologetic posts, she targeted Trump supporters with razor-sharp words. She mocked them online, dragging everything from their beliefs to their identity. In one Instagram post, she wrote, "May Trump supporters, Trump voters, and Trump himself never know peace." And she didn't stop there. In a full-on rant, she called his followers a deep, deep sickness, blasting them for what she described as a fake sense of security, masculinity, intelligence, and patriotism. For some, she was brave. For others, she was reckless. But either way, the storm around her just kept growing. While some corners of the internet rallied behind Zegler, praising her bold stance and progressive voice, a massive chunk of the American audience felt completely alienated, straight up attacked by her words. What should have been a fairy tale comeback for Disney quickly twisted into an all-out cultural showdown, with Snow White caught in the middle. To many, this wasn't just a movie anymore. It became a battleground. Hollywood's latest symbol of everything critics say is wrong with the elite, out-of-touch, left-leaning entertainment world. And Zegler? She wasn't just an actress now. She was the face of that firestorm, loud, proud, and right at the center of the chaos. The film, which was supposed to pull in families with a reimagined classic, got hijacked by political outrage. Zegler's tweet storm didn't just cause drama, it sent shockwaves through Disney itself. Insiders revealed that many people working on the project were stunned. She was headlining a family film, yet she was dropping statements that could drive away half the audience before the opening credits even rolled. As the press tour dragged on, it was clear. Snow White wasn't just a movie anymore. It had become a cultural war zone. A battle not about princesses or fairy tales, but about identity, politics, power, and the voice of celebrity influence. No matter how hard Disney pushed the magic, the visuals, the costumes, it didn't matter. The movie was buried under the weight of controversy. The headlines weren't about the story. They were about global conflicts, political division, and a Hollywood star at the center of it all. And just when people thought the drama had peaked, another bombshell dropped. Rumors swirled that Zegler, fed up with the non-stop tension, behind-the-scenes chaos, and mounting backlash, was ready to walk away from the entire thing. With the film in freefall, Zegler wasn't just dealing with damage control, she was allegedly taking matters into her own hands. Hollywood insiders started whispering that she had been actively trying to sabotage her co-star Andrew Burnap's career. Why? Bitterness. Sources claimed she was furious over his silence during the peak of her controversy storm. According to those close to the situation, Zegler believed Burnap had abandoned her when things got ugly. While she was getting slammed online and across headlines, he stayed quiet. No public support, no defense, nothing. She felt he let her take all the heat alone, and that silence, it cut deep. But this wasn't just some classic case of co-star tension. Insiders said it got personal, real personal. They claimed her behavior toward Burnap shifted from cold to calculated. Zegler allegedly started making sly, biting remarks about him on set. And off-camera, sources hinted she played a part in his role being trimmed down in the final cut. Word around set was that Zegler had convinced herself Burnap was somehow stealing the spotlight, despite all the heat she was catching from the public. It was a wild claim, but it showed just how deep the rift had become. Meanwhile, Burnap's career path started shifting too. While Zegler stayed in the spotlight, surrounded by non-stop controversy, he quietly began pulling away. Rumors flew that he was trying to distance himself from Snow White altogether, hoping to protect his brand before things got worse. His silence, once seen as passive, now looked like a strategic move. In Hollywood, no one wants to be tied to a sinking ship. But was Burnap simply playing it smart? Or was there real bad blood between him and Zegler? Maybe it was both, a toxic mix of professional frustration and personal betrayal, all playing out in front of the world. No matter how you spin it, one thing's crystal clear. Snow White didn't just flop. It became a full-blown Hollywood disaster. What was supposed to be a magical reboot turned into a chaotic mix of clashing egos, behind-the-scenes betrayals, and choices that left fans and insiders alike scratching their heads. Instead of being remembered for its performances, the film would go down in history for all the drama off-screen. As the dust settled, the feud between Zegler and Burnap became the headline. Whether or not she actually tried to sabotage his career, the whispers alone were enough to stain the entire production. And in Hollywood, where image is everything, this was the last kind of spotlight anyone wanted. Then came the ripple effect. Reports surfaced that Disney was rethinking their whole live-action strategy because of this mess. The studio had already sunk millions into Snow White, and now they were pulling the plug on a planned Tangled remake. Executives were clearly spooked, realizing maybe their formula for rebooting classics was starting to backfire. The premiere, a far cry from Disney's usual red carpet spectacles. It was held quietly in Los Angeles on a Saturday afternoon, with barely any press. Zegler smiled for photos, greeting kids dressed as Snow White, but the vibe was off. What should have been a celebration felt more like damage control. Zegler, once hyped as the next big Disney darling, now faces a shaky future. Rumors of tension between her and the studio are heating up, and insiders say she's got a long road ahead if she wants to bounce back in an industry that moves on fast. As for Burnap, he's still keeping it low-key, but behind that silence, some say he feels vindicated. No posts, no interviews, just silence that says it all. And Disney, they're already trying to rewrite the ending, hoping people will forget this messy chapter. But one thing's for sure, the questions still linger, and this fairy tale, it left more scars than sparkle. So now we're left with the real questions. Was Rachel Zegler truly treated unfairly by the public and media? Or did her own words, choices, and bold stances push one of Disney's most iconic remakes straight into the storm? Did Andrew Burnap play it safe by staying silent, or should he have stepped up when things started spiraling? And how much damage has this one film done to the already fragile relationship between modern Hollywood and its golden age classics? The live-action Snow White wasn't just a box office bomb, it became a symbol. A symbol of how fast things can unravel when the fantasy world of cinema collides with the chaos of real-life politics, social media pressure, and celebrity power plays. It was supposed to be a fairy tale comeback, a modern twist on the original princess that started it all. Instead, it turned into a behind-the-scenes battlefield where egos clashed, alliances broke down, and public trust was shattered. For Disney, the message is loud and clear. Nostalgia is powerful, but it's also fragile. Audiences don't just want representation and modern messages. They want heart, respect, and storytelling that honors the past while reaching toward the future. Miss that balance, and the whole thing crumbles. And for Hollywood, this entire debacle is a warning shot. Not every story needs to be fixed. Not every classic needs to be reworked into a modern manifesto. Sometimes the magic is in what's already there. In the end, Snow White's remake became a cautionary tale about ambition, image, and the cost of losing the audience's trust. What should have been a celebration of legacy turned into one of the most talked about controversies in recent memories. So, what do you think? Was Rachel Zegler misunderstood, or did she rewrite her own downfall? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives, Hollywood breakdowns, and the untold stories behind the screen. Thanks for riding through the chaos with us, and we'll see you in the next one.